Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Roger's Realtime Talk Show. Today, I have with me again Mark Edworthy and Medworthy on Minds.com. If you guys ever need help, then Mark is the guy to talk to. We like to refer to him as Tron. He is the mighty Tron. So, with that being said, I'd like to say welcome, Mark. And
Thanks. Huh?
today, the topic that at first I was wanting to do criminal and civil law until I finally wrote out the you know the topic on the chat, and the it was is quite extensive compared to what I thought it was going to be. So I figured I would just focus on criminal law today. Okay, is that fine
Mm,
with you?
mm. Yeah, that's fine. I'm just reading your notes.
Now
Yeah.
I know you're real big on like the agreements and everything that they have for like platforms and stuff like that when you go
Mm,
in and you do that. So I know that that's more of a civil law kind of
mm,
situation, but right here I put a reference in for the more critical parts of criminal law, and this one actually pertains to your country, which is Road Traffic Act of
mm.
1988. So it's here in the United States too, so that's why I think it's a good reference, because it generally applies to both countries basically. But
With a few differences, yeah.
now the criminal law regulates social conduct. It prescribes threatening, harming, or otherwise endangered, or otherwise endangering the health, safety, and the moral welfare of people. Now, criminal law also includes the punishment of people who violate these laws. Criminal law generally prohibits undesirable acts. Thus, proof of a crime requires proof of some act. Now, from how you read that statement, what do you take from that when you hear it? Proof of a crime requires proof of some act. Mark?
Well, it's the idea that a crime is only committed if a crime is only committed. Um, you can't just start creating false allegations or spurious allegations based on no information at all.
Okay.
There has to be reasonable suspicion.
Yeah, actus reus, or guilty act, is a part of what it's discussing. It's action or conduct which is constituent element of a crime, as opposed to a mental state of the accused. And constituent is a better word. I tried to find an alternative word to describe that, but I guess that one would fit better with what what would fit in there. It means that you're a part of the whole element of a crime. You know what I mean? You're directly involved in the group or the activity. You know what I mean?
Mm,
So you
the
have
action.
to,
Yeah.
yes, you have to be a part of the actual crime that's taken place. So, like, say somebody goes in and robs a bank, you know what I mean? The guy that's driving the car is still a part of the crime, so they are just as guilty as what the people are inside of the bank. You know what I mean?
Just as guilty. I would take issue with that. You're guilty of aiding and abetting a crime. You may not be just as guilty as the actual robbery itself. Hence, why judges will take that into consideration and then base prosecution upon that, or base charges, or base not charges. Base charges upon that.
Okay. That would actually be a good thing to talk about too eventually and get back to, because like I never while I was writing these down, I never even thought accessory, you know. We had a case here in the United States that happened back in the 40s, I believe. It was, I don't know if you ever seen or heard of the film called The Birdman of Alcatraz.
I think that's based on a book.
Based
Might
off,
have read it. Yeah.
it was based off of a true story.
But based on the true story. Film based on the book, based on the true story, sort of thing.
But well, first of all, he was all about raising birds in Alcatraz as a prisoner there, and he ended up getting arrested because he was sitting out inside of the car, and the guys that went in with him robbed a store, general store, shot the guy and killed him, and then came back. So, like, he ended up getting charged with the same crime, but I can I would almost guess it has to do with the severity of the crime as well, you know what I mean? Since he was driving the car and he wasn't associated with it, there was still a murder involved, so, you know what I mean?
He did have to pull the trigger, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that's something I think would be a good thing to review right there when it comes to that. Now, it says action or conduct which is constituent element of a crime as opposed to the mental state of the accused. All right. Now, again, we go into another part. It's called regulatory offenses. And have you ever heard of regulatory offenses before?
As a broad sort of definition, as a broad term, but not just nailed in. I mean that's a much more sort of broad term.
Now, as a broader term, could you kind of give me an idea of what it was that you generally have heard?
Off the top of my head, I can't recall any specifics. Again, I'm only just reading this now, so I haven't.
Okay. Now, regulatory offenses is a regulatory or quasi-criminal offense and are also known as strict liability offenses. Now, which the standard for culpability has been lowered that a guilty mind element is not required. Now, that has to do with men. Oh, go ahead.
Is that you say lowered? Lowered in what countries?
The reference that I pulled came straight out of my notes, so I would guess that would also apply in England as well as here, because this is the same notes that I pulled this content from. So I would guess that it's also in England, in London as well. And this is
in the UK.
Yeah, in the UK. Yeah. Now this is actually mens rea. It's the intention or knowledge of wrongdoing that constitutes part of a crime, as opposed to the conduct or action of the accused. Okay, so so that would be the accessory to the crime right there, or regulatory offenses. So that's what we were just discussing. I almost bet.
Mm.
Or quasi-criminal offense, or also known as a strict liability offenses, which the standard for culpability has been lowered that a guilty mind element is not required. So I'm wondering if that would possibly reach into what we were just discussing. So what's your thoughts on that? Oh, you're getting cut off again. Let me see what's going on. Yeah, he'll be back. Give him a second. He will, at least I get to see what time it is. Check my time, see how much we got recorded, things of that nature. He should be bouncing back in here. You there? It shows him in the green. Maybe it's me. Yep. Let me come back in. Oh, I lost internet. That's not good. No. Okay. That was crazy. Well, at least I've got everything setting up again. That's not going to be good at all. Okay, this is not good. Yeah, I just ended up getting my internet going down and everything. So
when what's happening.
that was horrible. Okay, so where were we at? Regulatory offenses. So, what's your take on the thing that we were discussing about, accessory to the
So,
crime? Do you think that would cover it?
sorry. What was your question? Your
Now,
question was a bit easy.
with say it was accessory to the crime. Now, regulatory offenses is a regulatory or quasi-criminal offense, and are also known as strict liability offenses, which the standard for culpability has been lowered that a guilty mind element is not required, and that's mens rea. And mens rea is the intention or knowledge of wrongdoing that constitutes part of a crime, as opposed to the conduct or action of the accused. Now that
So, as a hypothetical example, if I knew my next door neighbor was about to rob a bank, then I'd be culpable for
mens rea
yeah.
for that that kind of stretches into what we were talking about with accessory to the crime.
Mm.
I
Even though you're not committing a crime yourself, you are knowledgeable of the crime just about to take place.
yeah, it's yeah
Mm.
makes it's very interesting. And like right there, I mean, I think that's where they're kind of tippy-toeing when it comes to constitutional law and stuff too. Just, I mean,
Again, that's depend on individual country.
yeah, no. The prosecution, no, now an absolute liability offense is a class of crime in which it does not require any fault elements, mens rea, to be provided in order to establish guilt. Now, the prosecution only has to show that the accused performed the prohibited act. As such, absolute liability offenses do not allow for a defense of mistake of fact. And the mistake of fact is a type of... You there? Man, this is just not doing the deal. Are you there? Now it's Mark's turn. He's losing the internet. Yeah, are you there?
Yeah. You keep them coming in and out.
Yeah, I just saw that too. Now, did you catch that last part? The mistake of fact?
Up to a point, I think you were halfway through your sentence.
Okay, I'll redo it. The prosecution, okay, an absolute liability offense is a class of crime in which it does not require any fault element, which is mens rea, to be proved in order to establish guilt. Mens rea is the intention or knowledge of wrongdoing that constitutes part of a crime, as opposed to the conduct or action of the accused. Now, the prosecution only has to show that the accused performed the prohibited act. As such, absolute liability offenses do not allow for a defense of mistake of fact. Now, mistake of fact is a type of defense that can be used in a criminal case that demonstrates that the defendant did not have the criminal intent to commit the crime. So if you feel that you didn't have the criminal intent to commit a crime, you're still able to be prosecuted for that kind of crime. And that, according to the Road Traffic Act of 1988 in England, it consists of uh, like when you go in to get a title for your vehicle. If you have a vehicle and you're pulled over and you don't have a title or registration, I don't know if you guys have registration over there or
Yeah,
not.
yeah, yeah.
Then
Sure.
you can you can be found guilty. The seatbelt laws, license plates, insurance, things of that nature. So for me, right there, that I think that's really something that's touchy there too. Like for me personally, I have no problem with like the law cracking down on drunk driving and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Because that's something that the police should be doing. That's part of their job, and that's making sure the streets are safe. That's what we hire them to do. But like when they started going and enforcing laws that made it to where you had to take and put insurance on your cars and seat belts and even titles and registrations, I think that was crossing over the line right there, you know what I mean? And like state IDs, like in order to get a job, you have to have state IDs.
Okay. I'm not sure if it's crossing over the line because, again, this is all related to safety and being able to prove who you say you are. As we all know, that migration is on an increase at the moment, illegal and both illegal and legal, and it would be not good if you can just employ people that don't have any right to work in a country. So yeah, being able to prove who you say you are, prove that you are a citizen of that country.
Well, with me, I can see where you're coming from with that, but I also see where it's been turned into a monopoly with that too, because now, in order for you to hire somebody here, not only do you have to have state ID, but you also have to fill out forms for workman's compensation, even though people aren't injured on the job or have never been injured on the job. So the employer has to pay those fees in order for him to be able to hire somebody. You know what I mean? This is all state regulated. So
interestingly, the UK doesn't technically have any sort of official identity paperwork. This national insurance number that is provided at birth. But apart from that, legally speaking, there is no requirement for identification. Even the birth certificate states that even though a lot of companies and agencies will ask for a birth certificate to prove who you are, or some other form of paperwork, so passport or some other identification, but legally speaking, it states at the bottom of a UK birth certificate that birth certificates cannot be used as identification.
and see, that's interesting too, because here I mentioned to you before about non-governmental organizations, and we've got the IRS, we've got the Social Security Office, which a lot of people are surprised when they hear that that's not an actual government organization. It's a non-governmental, and
US, yeah.
and the weird part about that is with the Social Security offices now they don't accept birth certificates as a form of ID. They
I think they still do in this country. Yeah, pretty sure that they still do in this country.
Now they'll take voter registration cards as a form of ID at the DMV, which is a government office, all right? And they'll take your social security card, but they do not accept birth certificates there either. So you're kind of screwed up there.
And the other interesting then is that in the UK, a lot of the identification cards they use that let's say a teenager might get for being able to be accepted into a pub or buy alcohol or something, are actually run by private sector companies. Even though that these establishments will recognise those cards, but the cards themselves are owned by private sector companies. Therefore, you are providing your information to a private sector company rather than a state organisation or state agency.
Yeah. And see, the weird part about that too is if you don't comply with them, you can be arrested on criminal charges.
No, not in the UK. As far as I am aware, any establishment can refuse to serve you, but you cannot be charged with a felony if you do not have that card.
Now, what about paying taxes?
That's based upon national insurance numbers.
Okay, now do you have a organization like we have with the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service?
Yeah, but that is a state agency.
That is a state agency. So
Yeah.
see, that's the separation right there between England and the United States. Ours is a non-governmental organization, and they have the we call ours a voluntary tax system, which means we can voluntarily refuse to pay taxes, but afterwards, when the police come to knock on your door and kick it down, what you're doing is you're paying the consequences for voluntarily not paying your taxes to a non-governmental organization, and that's like the difference between England and the United States, I guess, because at least when they come kicking in your doors, it's because you decided not to pay a government organization, you know.
And the other thing is that the police are acting on behalf of that agency. So in this country, so if a agency or if a the UK equivalent to the IRS, the name of wishes to start a full investigation and into your property, I believe that they can demand a warrant themselves, but they do need a police officer to be there with them who's conducting that investigation or that internal search.
That's pretty interesting, actually, because it makes you wonder why is it that they need the police officer there, because I know well, I mean, maybe that'd be something for you to check out too, see if it's actually a government office, you know what I mean, because
it is a government office, but they've only got limited powers in search and seize. They still need technically they could use civil powers to do that. They could make a public arrest, a civil arrest. But generally speaking, I believe that they do need a police officer there to aid in the search.
Yeah, somebody there from the government that can observe as an intermediate.
They are still a government agency themselves,
Right.
but they need a police officer there just to act as a
observer.
Yeah, yeah,
So, just to be there to see it and make a report of it. So at
yeah.
least that's the logical thing that would be,
Mm,
you know. Now, for me, I know with Congress they can give plenary powers to these organizations, which gives them the same powers that Congress does. So, like say with the IRS, what they did is they gave congressional plenary powers to the IRS through Congress. Okay, and with the Social Security Office, that's what they did there too, in order to regulate people on Social Security cards as well as on income taxes.
mm.
They're technically not a government office, just like with the Federal Reserve. You know, they regulate our money, but they aren't they're a non-governmental organization, so they are given plenary powers from Congress to do Congress's job, basically.
I am not absolutely sure on this, but I believe that in the UK, the only agency that can forcefully, with a warrant, enter a person's property without the assistance of the police is customs and excise.
That's weird. Customs?
Hmm. Yeah,
That is pretty strange.
I think.
That's something else. So, now, it does say too that due to the ease in which the offense can be proven, only select offenses are of this type, and they're talking about the absolute liability offense. In most legal systems, absolute liability offenses must be clearly labeled as such in the criminal code or criminal legislation. So, in order for them to apply the absolute liability offense, they that has it has to be labeled in the criminal code or the criminal legislation. So that's one part I would have missed out on. And I also pulled up the Road Traffic Act of 1988.
Hmm.
And the Road Traffic Act of 1988, circa 52, is an act of the Parliament of the United Kingdom concerning licensing of vehicles, insurance, and road regulations. Part 1 contains a number of traffic offenses, including causing death by dangerous driving, driving under the influence of alcohol or drugs, including police powers to arrest, administer, test, etc., as well as requirements to wear seatbelts and motorcycle helmets. Part 2 is concerned with regulating the construction and use of motor vehicles and includes powers to test, inspect, and prohibit vehicles that do not meet standards. Alright, where are you at? I think I lost him again.
Yeah. No, you stay away. I did send you a link to the actual legislation just now.
Okay, that kind of freaked me out. I thought you went off.
No, no. I noticed. I saw that you provided the Wikipedia page, but I thought I'll give you the actual
Okay.
governmental page document.
Now, part 4 deals with the license requirements for driving large goods vehicles and passenger carrying vehicles, which is buses and coaches. Part 5 concerns the registration, licensing, and examining of driving instructors. Part 6 contains provisions concerning compulsory vehicle insurance against third-party risks. and Part 7 contains miscellaneous provisions. Now, with me, I would personally like to know what those miscellaneous provisions are, because
Again, the document I sent you gives you a full list of what can be considered.
oh wow.
Yeah.
Driving offenses: causing death by dangerous driving, causing serious injury by dangerous driving, meaning of dangerous driving, causing death by careless or inconsiderate driving. Inconsiderate. I mean, only in England would you guys put in your legal documents the word inconsiderate. You know, careless or inconsiderate driving. Causing serious injury by careless or inconsiderate driving. Careless and inconsiderate driving. Meaning of careless and inconsiderate driving. Causing death by driving unlicensed or uninsured drivers. That door. Yeah. Now, causing death by driving disqualified drivers. Causing serious injury by driving unqualified or disqualified drivers. Now, right there, when they talk about disqualified drivers, do you have an idea of the difference between qualified and disqualified drivers? Like, unlicensed, is that kind of what they're
talking? Somebody that either is unlicensed or have had a license revoked.
Oh wow!
For any particular reason.
Causing death by careless driving when under the influence of drinking or drugs. Now, down there, the miscellaneous one, there's a whole bunch of it. Oh my god. Like, right. I'm going to cover that last miscellaneous part because that's what really catches my mind. So,
this is actually an example of good legislation. I have got an issue with a lot of recent legislation that has been poorly formed and poorly worded, but this, because it provides definitions of every single subject, it is actually a good piece of legislation.
This is pretty good. I'll post it up in the chat room and everything. So if anybody wants to check it out and stuff, I can be there.
I was curious to see if there was any difference between England, Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland, and there was a slight difference as far as Scotland is concerned. Section 178.
For the miscellaneous in general, requirement for approval of persons to assist at test. 162A, approved test assistants. Power of constables and other authorized persons. Power to police to stop vehicles. Power of constables to require production of driver's license and, in certain cases, statement of date of birth. Oh wow, see right there, that's another difference with the United States and England, because like they can ask you, but you're not required to tell them what year you're born. A lot of people aren't aware of that, but you don't by law have to tell them.
In this country, we are required to tell them if of your name, date of birth, and address. If you're suspected of a action, if let's say a police officer just comes up to you in the middle of the street randomly, and they ask for that, you don't have to provide that information.
Oh, cool.
but it is a criminal. I believe it is a criminal offence to actually not provide the information if you're suspected of a crime.
Yeah, so if they're like just walking up to you in public and they just want to know what your birthday is, and they have no actual,
Yeah,
so that
yeah,
would
yeah.
actually. Now, Dan is in chat, and since you're in here with me, he took it upon himself to correct my spelling. All right, so I just want to
Yeah,
mention
I
that
thought it was a yeah. I thought that was a
it's a
incorrect definition.
codes on business law in university. This sounds like an interesting conversation to join, but I can't. My work hours. Yeah,
Hmm.
I took a course on business law in university. This sounds like an interesting conversation. Oh, he misspelled course. Yeah, I I misspelled Roos, and he misspelled.
COUR. Oh yeah, Miss Webb. They are. Yeah.
He's got a whole lot of misspelling, or we got a whole lot of misspelling going on in here. So, boy, this no wonder why we drive you crazy.
Yeah. Well, if I was given a cent or a penny for every time I see a misspelling on mine, so I'd be a multi-millionaire by now.
Now, now retention, etc., of vehicles seized under Section 165A. Now, like property being seized, that's another thing that I know that we're having issues here in the United States with because they can actually seize your property and take it away from you. Not only if you were the one who actually committed the crime, but like say the crime happened on your property. So say you got a kid who likes to smoke dope and he decides to go into your garage and smoke some dope, and the cops go in and bust him in your garage smoking dope, then they can take and seize every single thing that you have in your house because your son was in the garage smoking dope.
I'm not so sure if that's true in this country. I know that certain allegations do require the police to seize equipment. So, as an example, just a random example, if you are being accused of supporting a terrorist organization, the police could come in and seize all of your electronic equipment to review and potentially use as evidence.
Yeah. Well, they got like cases here where they've literally taken like snow cone machines and set them up in police stations so that the police officers could have snow cones to enjoy.
Well, arguably, if that is a element of the crime, then that item can be used as evidence.
Now, see, the crazy part about it too is like these decisions here, when it concerns that stuff, doesn't even make it to the judge. Like the person who does all this is the circuit clerk. You know what I mean? So in order for you to try to petition to get your property back, you don't even go to a judge. You have to go to the circuit clerk and file a petition to get your properties back.
I'm not sure how it works in this country, actually. I've personally never been in this sort of situation, so I don't know. Again, I don't know how that actually physically works in this country.
So that's why I like to read through the miscellaneous stuff, because then you come up with some interesting stuff. Now, duty of give a name and address. failure to give or giving false name and address in case of reckless or careless or inconsiderate driving or cycling. Pedestrian contravening constable's direction to stop to give name and address. And that's pedestrian contravening. Okay, so that means if they resist and they refuse to stop and give their name and address, then they can be brought up on criminal charges.
Again, only I believe only if they are suspected of an action. Criminal action.
Now, duties in case of accident. Duty of driver to stop, report accident, and give information or documents. Other duties to give information or documents. Duty of owner of motor vehicle to give information for verifying compliance with requirement of compulsory insurance. And you guys use the term compulsory. Compulsory's like voluntary, isn't it?
No, compulsory is the opposite. It's forced.
Forced insurance. So you guys are being forced to get insurance. I'm wondering if ours is compulsory too, to be honest, because I know...
I would imagine so. I would think so.
Because I know the tax system is voluntary, but compulsory I don't know about when it comes to license. And the DMV is government run, so...
Or state run, rather government run, but yeah.
State run, so... Duty to give information as to identify identity of driver, etc. in certain circumstances.
Remember, the owner of the vehicle may at any one time not be the driver.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, right there too, it would make you kind of suspicious, as being maybe a thief selling somebody's car without their knowledge.
Well, as a obvious example, you buying your car off your parents to do, I don't know, some grocery shopping or something.
Yeah. And
where your parents would be the owners, your father, as an example, would be the owner, but you are the driver at that specific time.
Yeah. Or they tell you to go to the store for them and use their car, just basically.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So, let me see. I believe, man, with all of the damage that this computer has done to my streaming, we should probably hang it up and let me see what exactly needs to be taken care of here.
I think we've probably got a good 30-40 minutes worth of content anyway.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we did. And we only lost maybe about 4 or 5 minutes.
10 minutes, 10 minutes at the most. Yeah.
It wasn't all that bad, so. And plus, you've got to be at somewhere at the end of the hour, so. There's one thing I wanted to talk to you about too. This morning I did an episode or my first episode of Into the Abyss with Roger Hansen. I was wondering if sometime soon me and you can get together and start talking about time zones and stuff like that.
You've been wanting to do this for some time. Yeah, we can do that. Just arrange a time with me at some point.
And now, when it comes to time zones and time in general, like how much are you into it? Like, can you explain what UTC the meaning for it is?
Yeah, I would probably would have to look up specific time zones, but in general, yes, I'm
And
okay with that.
and why time zones and UTC are needed and things like that. Do you know all that stuff?
I can tell you why they're needed. Just to annoy me whenever I see somebody online providing incorrect information.
But with that, all I want is just a normal conversation. How we usually
Mm,
have conversations about the time zones and how crazy it
yeah.
is. So,
Ugh.
especially whenever you're trying to explain it to me, because it drives me nuts, and it drives you nuts trying to explain it to me. So,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just I just wanted to ask you that before we got off here, if you'd be willing to do that. So, because
Okay.
that's
I would suggest that you make up a few notes for me to review, and then I can play off that.
okay. We can do it.
Yeah.
Now,
Mm,
if it was up to me, I would go all the way back. I'd start talking about the uh, rotation of the Earth and stuff like that. So,
okay.
I mean, in the calendar, talk about the Gregorian calendar and how time is important because of the crops, things of that
Yeah.
nature.
Mm. And then we go into things like daylight saving times and how some countries are follow daylight saving times and other countries don't, and some countries use half-hour sort of basis, and some countries use hour basis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that just hurt thinking about it, didn't it?
Yeah, I was just thinking that myself. Yeah.
Well, we did another good episode of this, and I want to thank you for being here, Mark. And
Sure.
with that, I'm going to go ahead and end the stream, and I will talk to you later.
All right.